Thank you, Tommy, and good afternoon to your viewers. Look, I think the issue at hand here, and we need to get back to what's the real issue. You know, there are many people running around now trying to presuppose and assume that we and many of the commentators are not aware of the history of our country, the struggle, the role that Cubans have played, and that countries would have bilateral agreements and have these exchanges. And South Africa, as a case in point, has always been open to technical exchange with international experts. And, you know, back home, of course, we pride ourselves on having a plethora of revered engineers throughout the world. So the issue at hand here, you know, firstly, is we should get away from the kinds of opportunism that one is seeing and get back to the substantive issue. And if anyone doubts the motives, for example, of Consulting Engineers South Africa, we are happy to dispel the myth that it is an organization which doesn't at least boast 60% of its members being black-owned companies who employ black engineers. And the commentary we're getting from our members is without color. Everybody is frustrated by the shortage of work, the insufficient projects that are being put out, and the fact that your experienced engineers find themselves unemployed, and your younger graduates find themselves unable to secure employment.
In the statement that you've released, Mr. Campbell, you say that it's quite ironic because South Africa's own engineers are regarded internationally, and that South Africa's own water conservation schemes are better than those of Cuba. Is that what you said?
Better would be the wrong word. The scale and the magnitude of the water resources is much larger than that of Cuba. And that's the only point. So it's not a case of that there may well be Cuban experts who've learned a thing or two that can share them with our local practitioners. No, there's no argument about that. They are welcome. But the process here is what has created the need for us to say something about it. Is, you know, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, when they were looking for additional capacity, they came to industry associations and consulted us. They even put out an advertisement, and we directed the many unemployed graduates and experienced engineers to apply to the department to fill that gap. Did the Department of Water and Sanitation bother to do that? Not at all. Could they have brought in half the number of Cubans with absolute expertise which didn't exist amongst our local practitioners? Of course. So there would be no argument around that. I just think that the optics, the timing, and the process that was followed at a time when so many people are desperately seeking employment. You know, we talk about livelihoods. Livelihoods is not just an issue related to COVID. It's related to employment. And we should be more sensitive about how we do that for our people.
What is the current relationship, Mr. Campbell, that exists between government and the private sector within the engineering fraternity? This is obviously a government-led infrastructural development program, but how do you liaise with government in other circumstances separate to this?
So we, Consulting Engineers South Africa, have continuously, we've written to various ministries, pledging our support, offering to partner in the challenges that they may have within their various sectors. And because, as you rightfully say, this is not just about water, it's about infrastructure in broad and the limited capacity and skills that exists. And we were offering a partnership towards a sustainable solution, because it's always been our opinion, and it has to be so, that government needs to have the capacity as the custodians and owners of the infrastructure that is developed for our country. And unless you get to that point, you will continuously going to have to find yourselves having to renew the infrastructure, because there's nobody to make sure that timely maintenance of that infrastructure takes place.
So it's not only just about the development, but it's also about the maintenance of that infrastructure after it has been put up. You mentioned a bit earlier on as well about the number of unemployed engineers in South Africa. Do you have any data on that?
I don't have the specific data, but I am fully aware that the South African Institution of Civil Engineering, excuse me, South African Institution of Civil Engineering have a survey that they've done of their individual members, okay? And amongst their members, they've uncovered about at least well over 200 unemployed engineers. And then more specifically, ones who are more readily available, they've got about a database of about 100 that at an instant could have been made available to the ministry had they inquired. But to get back to your earlier question, the challenge we have is that the relationship between government and the private sector is not as strong as it should be. And we should be partnering more, because we want to all be part of the solution. And it doesn't help for these kinds of situations to unfold, and the industry continues to be ignored. Let's partner to fix the problems we have, because we all are going to suffer under the circumstances should our economy slide any further.
And what is the way forward then for professional engineers in South Africa in relation to this particular Cuban project and the government? Have you made headway in communicating your concerns and offering your assistance and partnership to government thus far?
So unfortunately, this, shall we call it a media storm, sort of unleashed over this weekend. So that is in process. We haven't quite secured a meeting, but certainly it's the intention as early as Wednesday already for a collective of institutions, Consulting Engineers South Africa, the Institute of Civil Engineering. We have other partners, Black Business Council of the Built Environment. I mean, unashamedly, this is not about an organization, one over the other. It's about a collective of engineers with the capacity and knowledge to have that meeting of the minds with the minister, and let's look at how can we together solve the problems that we have.
Before I let you go, Mr. Campbell, we spoke a little bit earlier on about the agreements that exist between various countries. The cooperation agreement, the one that we have with Cuba, dates back to 2001. How can these agreements best be leveraged, that it is a win-win situation that doesn't drain the country of its own expertise, but that also benefits from the expertise of the Cubans, for example?
You know, the logical process here, which would have negated all the kinds of emotive responses that people may have, defensive responses that people have, sometimes even factually incorrect responses. It is, had the ministry simply, as I said, similar to the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, put out a notification to industry associations where you are alerting them to the fact that you are looking for experienced engineers in this field, that could easily be shared and have been shared. The department could then choose which would they want to commission locally, and then instead of on the assumption and the basis that the skills don't exist, then selectively bring a few Cubans to add to the complement the expertise that exists already. And that makes for better relationships. It makes for a better understanding of the situation. And it's then not an action which appears to ignore and almost insult our local engineering practitioners in the sense that we don't have the knowledge and expertise. I think we need to be more proud of the skills and the expertise we do have across our various race groups. I think, you know, we shouldn't be ashamed of our engineering expertise. Let's leverage of it.
Mr. Campbell,
where we can help other countries, we should do so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Articulated there the CEO of the Consulting Engineers South Africa, Chris Campbell, saying that they should not be ignored or even insulted as a group and as a profession, that the skills are here in the country, but very open to collaborate.